Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. Trent Alexander-Arnold has announced that he will be leaving Liverpool Football Club, so what better way to hit that algorithm than to go with the top 5 best replacements for Trent Alexander-Arnold. And listen, they might not be the best. They are my list of players based on
underline
stats.
that part. This is Chris's list.
Based
I'm
on
just
stats.
here.
There's a few others that we'll talk about. I so wanted to hit the top 5 algorithm that I've put top 5, right, and I've got 6 names on my list. So just bear with us on this one. There's a couple of wild shouts in here that I think could be like Liverpool-esque sort of moves. There's a couple of players from the Premier League and a couple of players that Arne Slot has worked with in the past as well. To give us a decent little sort of grouping of types of fullback. But before we get into it, Josh, Trent Alexander-Arnold's leaving Liverpool Football Club, and I don't know how you feel about that.
It's easier to take knowing that it's been coming for a while.
Yeah.
So it was one of them really, and yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. I don't feel as emotional as some other people about it. To be honest, I don't really know why either, but I don't feel as attached to Trent as I have to some other players.
Give us an example.
Well, for example, I have a soft spot for Alexis McAllister, and he's not even Scouse. I don't know why, but I think maybe it's because Trent doesn't do media duties anymore. I don't know what it is, but I feel like maybe it's my own thing where I've kind of distanced myself from because I've known this was in the post a little bit, but I don't really feel. And I think another thing with it is, I do feel like I understand it. I do feel like I get it. I know there's a lot of PR in there, and I think his camp have been clever about the way they've been doing certain things. Like, it annoyed me a little bit when they come out and said, like, we're deliberately saying this now so that Trent can face up against it, and then it comes out the following day that Real Madrid won him for the Club World Cup. Come on, mate, we're not stupid. But I do feel like the bottom line is he wants a new challenge. I do think he wants a change of setting, change of scenery, and I think that's fine. I'm one of them people who gets like that. I don't like comfort zones, and I like to mix it up. I like to keep things fresh and all that. And he has won everything in his hometown. I don't think things he's said in the past are necessarily lies now that he wants to go to Madrid. I think your mindset changes over the course of time, and that's so. I do think he loves Liverpool. I still think he loves Liverpool and all that stuff, but I think he's reached the point where he wants to do something different. And I think he's earned the right to want that as well, given his contributions over the years and Liverpool at the top of the tree and everything. So I don't feel as bitter about it as a lot of fans, from what I've seen at least. I just looking at the reaction, especially on social media, a lot of it I've looked at and thought, like, that's a bit harsh, that. Personally, I don't know about you.
Yeah, completely opposite. I asked your opinion. I've given my opinion on the podcast and stuff like that, of course. Like, one thing I will say about the move to Real Madrid, because I never mentioned it yesterday, the potential early move to Real Madrid, I should say. I said we should not at all do that. I said garden and leave the bugger. You know what I mean? Let him get fat. Do you know what I mean?
Play him in the reserves.
No problem whatsoever with any of that. I don't think Liverpool should do that at all. And I stand by that. Why, with all of the money that's involved in that Club World Cup, should you make it easier for them to win it after they've had your pants down as a football club? Fully against that.
Yeah.
Fully against that.
Yeah.
You wanted to run your contract down, lads. You run your contract down, is what I would say.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that as well. I think, like, that the absolute last thing you want to do, even if it's for money, is do a favour for a club that have basically snatched one of your best players on a free. Yeah, so I'm not against that at all.
There's a little bit of snide in there. I like it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk a few players. I'll go through the full list now with you. So we're going to talk about Jeremy Frimpong, we're going to talk about Olaina, Gertrude, Javaro Reed, Wesley Franca and Pedro Porro, and we're going to talk about a couple of other players as well that could potentially fit in there. Before we do, I think it is important to talk about Conor Bradley, first and foremost, Josh. Do you see Conor Bradley as being a good enough footballer to walk straight in and take that right back position next season?
Yeah, I do. I think he's a good enough player. I think he offers enough on the ball. I think he offers enough without the ball. Good age, physical level's decent. He can overlap, he can underlap. We've seen him invert at times. I think he's a better 1v1 defender than Trent. So, easy answer is yes. The problem, everyone knows this, is the...
It's why I asked footballer, and it's why you answered it well.
Yeah, the problem is the availability. Is he robust enough to navigate a season where you're playing potentially around 60 games? You know, I saw a little stat the other day, a little graphic on Sky, and I think the start date that I'm going to say is right, but I think it was since Trent's debut, or since Jurgen Klopp took over, or one or the other, there's one player for Liverpool who's played more than Trent, and that's Salah. So that's one of Trent's most underrated qualities, I think. I know he picks up a little knock for like 2 weeks here and there, but his ability to play 3 games a week consistently now for like, what has it been, 8 years or something like that, 8-9 years or something. Mm-hmm. That's one of his best qualities, and Bradley demonstrated that at Bolton, funnily enough. Did play, I think he started 41 in the Championship that season, gets Player of the Year for them. But since he's come to Liverpool, maybe it's, how old is he? Could it be?
He's 21.
So it could be growth problems still. Maybe it's that, but he hasn't showcased enough availability yet to be the kind of guy that you can just hang your hat on and be like, we don't even need a backup. Whereas over the years we haven't needed that with Virgil, we haven't needed that with Mo, and that's because those players you just know they're guaranteed to play every week. So footballer, yes, but bigger picture, you need someone else there to compete with him.
Yeah, that's totally fair, like, isn't it? And I think everybody, you're right, sort of thinks the same way. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at, we'll start by looking at Trent Alexander-Arnold stats, and we'll just do the overview stats for now on FB Ref. So I'll just bring them up in front of me right now. These are Trent Alexander-Arnold's last 365 days on FB Ref. We'll take a quick look at Conor Bradley's. We'll talk about what some of the stats could potentially mean and what type of a fullback they are, because there are some stats, as an example, right now, I'm going to look at progressive passes for Trent Alexander-Arnold, and you can see that on the screen there. He's top 99 percentile, 8.38 progressive passes every single game. As a comparison to what I'm talking about, I'm just going to move over to Jeremy Frimpong, and we're going to look at his progressive passes, right? 1.82 seconds. But if we look at progressive passes received for Jeremy Frimpong, and we look at touches in the attack and penalty area for Jeremy Frimpong, just from those two stats, progressive passes or progressive passes received, that can tell you a lot about what type of a footballer they are, can't they, Josh?
Yeah, 100%. Both very offensive players, funnily enough. They just do it in very different ways. I've said before that Frimpong is the kind of player that you want ahead of the ball. I don't think you want him, and that's a little bit of a problem that I've got with it a little bit. Like, if Liverpool play with this back four, move the ball down this end. So when Liverpool are building the game, that's what it's like. Liverpool build with a 4 and a 2, essentially. Back four with the fullbacks sitting relatively narrow, and a midfield 2. And Szoboszlai will come down and help every now and then, but these guys certainly stay really high. Maybe Jota will drop a little bit, but these are the guys who are expected to build the game for you. And I am uncomfortable with that player being Frimpong, because the kind of player that he is suits so much being one of them ahead of the ball. So he's a bit of an outlet for me. He's a runner, road runner. You've got to use him. You've got to let him off the leash. If you using him here, I mean, this is specifically build up, but if you're using him in your build up here, it remains to be seen whether he can do it, because he hasn't really been used like that at Leverkusen. Alonso has consistently used him as a wing back at the least, you know, where he's ahead of the halfway line and he's running behind and all that stuff. So Trent has suited it, and passes will suit it. you can carry the ball. Maybe that'll be his way out by carrying the ball out of defensive there. But as a passer, the evidence so far is that he doesn't really do that. He doesn't get you up the field with his passing, which is very, very different to obviously what we've known with Trent.
Absolutely. So, okay, well, I'm going to show you Conor Bradley's now because I think he's almost a hybrid of the two players in many ways, isn't he? Frimpong's so attacking. Trent sits deep and plays those passes. Conor Bradley, on the other hand, middle of the road in progressive passes. Progressive carries, he's very, very high. And touches in the attack and penalty area very high, but his progressive passes received not as high. That's sort of someone who sort of sits in the middle, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, from your mind, before we dive into the players too much, is there any right back in world football that looks like Trent Alexander-Arnold in the stat sheet?
I think the most similar is probably Hakimi.
Yeah.
For PSG. I had a look at that last night, actually. I was just playing with different things and that. And,
which like, normally that would be like a PS5, but you were on FB, right?
Yeah. I was on Tableau, actually, yeah.
Away, yeah.
And I got up, like, what did I get up? I got up fullbacks for progression, attacking threat, and believe it or not, defensive output. Mm-hmm. And which players kind of tick the holy trinity, if you want. And the two players, I set the bar pretty high, and there was two players left in the sample, and one was Trent, one was Hakimi. Hakimi's obviously not attainable, so realistically speaking, it's Pedro Porro for me is the most similar to Trent. I think he does inverted fullback bits. I think he's more of a passer than anything else, but he can carry it. He can hit the ball as well. I've seen him take free kicks and things like that. I've seen him score from outside the box. He's proven in the Premier League. He's 25. He can overlap, he can underlap. So Porro for me is the clone, if you want. That is actually probably wouldn't be gettable. But Spurs, what are they, 16th?
Yeah. I think he is gettable, to be honest with you.
Spurs being 16th.
I think Daniel Levy will drive a hard bargain.
Yeah.
But I think anybody's gettable. If Harry Kane's gettable, anybody's gettable.
Yeah. And Spurs are notorious for paying low wages as well. I think he's on about 85k, which isn't too bad for the player that he is. So, if I was in charge, I would be curious about that one. I would wait to see if Spurs win the Europa League, and then as a result, get in the Champions League. Hopefully, that doesn't happen. If that doesn't happen, maybe it means Man United have to win it. But if that doesn't happen, I think the likelihood of Liverpool having the possibility to get Porro doubles. But if they get the Champions League, it's a virtual non-starter.
I disagree. I think it's still up. I still think it's on.
Yeah.
Because there is a point where Pedro Porro looks at it and goes,
I want to get out of here.
What am I going to win here?
Yeah.
Really? Now, I've let's say I've just won the Europa League. What else am I going for? Am I going for the Prem? Nah. Are we really going to win the Champions League? Nah. Who's the manager next season? Don't fucking know, even if they win it. I just think he'll want to go and win stuff. Yeah. And there's and looking at that right back position for Liverpool with Conor Bradley there, I think that's the one where he'll think, I can win that shit and I can play for the Premier League champions.
Yeah. I think that is part of the problem for me though. I think with Daniel Levy being there, he is going to drive a hard bargain. You are probably going to get fleeced within reason. I think he's got 3 years on his contract still. So Liverpool don't usually like doing deals like that don't benefit them.
It's a myth, Daniel Levy driving a hard bargain.
Is he?
Yeah. He did it for Gareth Bale.
Yeah, but he was in a powerful position for Gareth Bale.
That's it.
Is it though?
Yeah.
How much did they get for Kane? 80?
Yeah, but it's Harry Kane. He was worth it.
Yeah, I know he was worth it.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like...
How much did Carrick go for? Was Levy in charge when Carrick was there and Berbatov and all that? Berbatov was 30.
Wait, what are you talking? How many years ago are you talking?
Yeah, but...
Just those players that you've named. Name me one in the last fucking 3 years that's not Harry Kane that he's drove a hard bargain for.
But who have they sold in recent years that has made a step up in England like that or whatever? They haven't really sold anyone, have they?
Yeah, right. I'm going on to transfer market because I truly believe that this is a myth.
I think it's known.
It's one of them things that's known and talked about and it's bullshit. Like Man City buying really, really well.
I don't think it is. I think it's a definite truth that Daniel Levy is I don't want to say tight, but like when it comes to the money side, he's very, very stringent. So he'll get like maximum. He'll pay minimum and he'll get maximum. I think he's known for that. Like, and I don't think Liverpool can be asked with that.
Davison Sanchez, £9.5 million. Harry Kane, €95 million. Harry Winks, €11 million. Oliver Skip, to be fair, €23 million. Emerson Royale, $15 million.
I'm talking more about
Lo Celso, $5 million.
I'm talking more about someone who he doesn't want to sell up.
Bergwijn, $31 million. There's a lot. Like Toby Alderweireld, $13 million. Moussa Sissoko, $3 million. Kyle Walker-Peters, $13 million.
This isn't my point, though. These are not players that they would have wanted to keep.
Kieran Trippier, $22 million.
I still think we're going to have to... What were you expecting? What do you think we could get him for? Out of interest.
55?
He paid 45 to get him, you know.
But he wants to leave now. Wants to come to the Premier League champions. Of course he does.
Well, I would love him to come, but...
55?
One thing I was going to say as well, on top of the Levy stuff, is... What message does it send to Bradley if you go and buy Pedro Porro? Because I think if you go and buy someone who in theory could be competition for him, you could ignite a fire.
Yeah.
But if you go and buy Pedro Porro and spend over 50 million on him, and he's 25, you're not sending the message there to Bradley, are you, that like you're in contention here. I think that screams, we're not sure you're good enough yet. And I don't think Bradley would like that. Liverpool will always look internally first. Always. So, just everything I've said, I do like the idea of Porro. I think he's the most similar. I think he's potentially attainable. All of that stuff, there's loads of perks there. But do I think Liverpool will do it? I'd be very surprised. I just can't see it. But it's not one I'm willing to rule out, though.
Yeah, I mean, as you are right. I mean, he is one of the players that I wanted to look at and stuff. And let's just take a little overview, actually, before we move on. Ages, height, contract end dates, all that type of stuff. So I'll zoom in on this so you guys can see it a bit better, and definitely so that Josh can see it. So Frimpong's 24. Roughly 48 million is what's touted for Frimpong. I'd be surprised if it was anywhere near that.
I thought it was a 35 release clause.
On Frimpong?
Yeah, that's what I'm aware of. Like
76k a week, 2028. Sounds doable. Olaine, there's talk of him being on the free at the end of this season. There's also talk of an option for another season. He's on 40k. Contract ends this year. He's 28. Getsuda, 24. No mention of fees. He's just signed for Leipzig this season, didn't he, at the start of this season? Currently on 90k long contract. Javario Reed, this is a kid who Arne Slot gave his debut to with Feyenoord. He broke into the side when he was like 16, 17. He's now 18. Talk of 25 million. Don't know when his contract ends. Wesley Franca playing over in Flamengo. 21 years old. There's rumours that his contract is ending in the next year or so, but I'm not 100% sure. And Pedro Porro, 85k a week, contract ends 2028, 50 million circa, something like that. So they're the players that we're going to take a look at, and we'll do that right now, actually, and we'll start off with a little bit of a stat comparison with all of them. So let's see if I can find that page. Somewhere along here, and it's completely gone. Wow, where is it? I have no idea where it's gone. Give us a second, sorry. Where on earth's that?
I've got the link here, like.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Bloody hell. Sorry about that, everybody. So we've got the players there. What do you want to look at first? Do you want to look at standard stats or passing or maybe progression and standard stats to begin with?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll toggle per 90. You can see, first of all, Wesley's only played 7 games this season. He's sort of broken in. But progressive carries-wise, Frimpong's number 1. 3.77 a game. Wesley, 2.61, smaller sample size. Pedro Porro, 2.3. Oleaina, 1.94. Javario Reed, again, he's sort of just broken into the side, really. Progressing passing-wise, Getruda seems to be the closest to Trent, who's around about 8. Then it's Porro, again, 5.36. Javario Reed, 4.11. Now, this one, for me, is a really interesting one because he's 18 years old. And it goes back to what you were talking about with Pedro Porro and the message that it sends to Conor Bradley. I mean, look, have a look at some of these stats here, just in the scouting report there. Top 1% in assists, 0.32 a game. It's higher than Trent, by the way. It's 0.2 something, 0.26 maybe for Trent. Maybe that was his expected assists. Shot creating actions, nearly 3 a game. Progressive passes, 4 a game. Carries, nearly 2 a game. Received, 4.5 a game. Good tackler by all things as well. Arne Slot knows him, 18 years old, time to develop. This be a type of move, if not necessarily the player that you could see Liverpool go for, a young lad like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure on this one, to be honest. Since I've looked at the market, I said a few weeks ago, I think, didn't I, that I'm a bit more in favour of a project than I initially was, just because the options I don't think are that great. So maybe you put your faith in Bradley and sign a project who's even younger than him to kind of act as a bit of a support act for him. But at the same time, he is very much a kid. Like, he hasn't had a career yet. He's 18. He's played 23 times in the Eredivisie this season. 19 starts. Some decent returns in there, and he does look good when you watch clips of him. He is tiny though.
He's tiny, 5'7".
Yeah. So he's just a boy, and I don't know if you bring in a boy like that to Liverpool yet. Do you know what I mean? Even if he is a project, like, you're talking projects and then you're talking that. So it's probably not one for me. It helps that Slot knows him a bit, and it helps that he's got a offensive product to his game by the looks of it. I think that's a big thing for me. I keep saying, like, I think one thing with Frimpong, for example, is at least he's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's the thing for me. I don't like it when you sign a player who's completely toothless. Does me head in that, especially if you're losing Trent. So signing someone who at least poses some sort of threat is a good thing. Reed is that. But have you seen that Julian Ward quote where he said something along the lines of, like, to have a career at Liverpool, you have to have already had a career.
Yeah.
I think that's a good line. I think it applies. Liverpool.
They look for at least sort of 100 appearances, don't they, in the top level wherever they've been playing.
Yeah, I think that the FSG player is probably something like a Canate, who is still only 22 when we bought him, but has like 3-4 seasons of starting football in the top 5 European league, and he has experience in the Champions League as well. So I think Reed, for me, would be too much of a gamble. Do we know when his contract expires? Sorry,
I'm not 100% sure, but I couldn't find any information on it, to be honest with you. So
yeah, because I don't. If he's a project, how much is he going to cost still? Because if he's still going to cost a fair bit because of his potential, I don't think Liverpool will do that. Like, so
interesting. We've got someone in the comments here who says, Capitao says, Flamengo fan here, Wesley has insane potential and has only gotten better. Plays for the Brazil national team as well.
We've got a Flamengo fan watching.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are you a Liverpool fan as well then? I'd like to know that.
Yeah, let us know in the comment section, please. Capitao even. Let's have a look at him then, because when it comes to progressive passes received,
who?
Wesley.
Right.
11.4 a game. More progressive passes received than Jeremy Frimpong.
I was just about to say name, Franca,
but on FB ref he's just down as Wesley. There you go.
Okay, I've got it, yeah.
Right. So, only started 7 times so far. Their season runs slightly differently to ours though, doesn't it, in Brazil? I seem to remember. So I'm not 100% sure what that is about. 0.14 assists per game at the moment. Is see if I can find something on.
I mean, his SBVF is based on over 3,000 minutes though, over the past year. So, I mean, it's not necessarily in comparison to Europe's big five leagues though, as compared to, because he's playing in Brazil as compared to everyone else beyond Europe's top five leagues. So, it's a bit of a different sample he's getting compared to, but does look very offensive. I'll be honest, I've never seen him play. No. He's completely off my radar, like, which is, I think, understandable given he plays in Brazil and he's a kid. But having a glance at his data, it looks interesting. Looks very attack-minded, at least. I'll give you that. But yeah, can't really overly comment on him because I don't know much about him.
He is one of those players who is now being touted as a move to Europe is on the cards for him, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
And Liverpool aren't normally that club, are they?
No.
There's normally a go-between before Liverpool get involved.
Yeah. Although we do make exceptions. We tried for Rodrigo by all accounts. I think we agreed a £3 million deal and everything.
Wow.
But he ends up going to Madrid. So I think Liverpool would make exceptions there. I don't think that's so much a thing. But you'd have to be serious. Maybe he is. I'll have a look at him tonight. But I don't know too much about him. But obviously there's a reason Liverpool don't tend to do that though. It's because there's a risk attached to going straight to South America and bringing a player to Merseyside. You know what I mean? It's a bit of a difference, like, so. What
about Getsuda then? Because he's been on everybody's lips. That name has been on everyone's lips for a little while now, Josh. But surely in moving to Leipzig last season, I know he played for Slaughter Feyenoord and all that type of stuff, but like, do you think it's feasible? Or is he, first off, is he the right type of player? And is it feasible?
I don't think it's likely. Personally, I can't see it happening. Mainly because he has just moved. So he's contracted for another 4 years. And he's on just under 100 grand a week. So price-wise, that'd be a pretty expensive deal for Liverpool to do, I'd assume. He's a decent size. You know, he's relatively versatile as well. I know Slot used him in a few different spots. I know he played him at left back, right back, centre back. Whether he's physically good enough to do that in England versus, you know, the Netherlands remains to be seen as a question mark there. I can't really see it happening. Again, it helps that Slot's work with him, and it probably helps that it hasn't been a good season for Leipzig. That Leipzig, where are they now? Let's have a look. Last time I checked, they were like mid-table. So apparently they're 6th at the moment. Don't know if they're going to get Europe. Bit of a rebuilding year for Leipzig, I think. But I don't think they'd anticipate. I don't think he's been like shocking to the extent where, say for example, when PSG bought Ugarte, and then the following season just sold him to Man United to get him off the books. I don't think Leipzig would do that with Geertruida. So if he was still a Feyenoord, I'd see potential for more. You know, I'd see more scope for a move there, but not because he's moved to Leipzig and that. I can't see Liverpool paying what it'd cost to get him out of there because I don't think Liverpool think he's worth that much.
Okay, all right, we'll move on then. I want to go back to Javario Reid because I forgot to bring this visualisation up. It's from Opta Analyst. It was an article about potential Trent Alexander-Arnold replacements. Javario Reid was on this article. It's where I got the name from. So here is assists and chances created. Does that look familiar to you?
It does, yeah. There's lots of withdrawn crosses from that kind of half space spot, which is good. Obviously we know Trent is very good at doing that, and I think we've done shows, haven't we, this season on crossing? You know, with Salah offering it from the right, Gakpo offering it from the left, and then Robertson and Trent offering slightly different angles. So Liverpool have got like a bit of a crossing thing going on against low blocks this season, specifically under the slot. So that looks good in reference to that.
So it's interesting that the crosses are to back stick as well. We've done shows on that recently. Yeah,
well, Gakpo 6'3" or something like that, isn't he? So it's a nice weapon to have when you've got players like that. So yeah, it's a decent little quality that he's got. He definitely, put it this way, he definitely wants to keep an eye on. Maybe you do go and sign a short-term solution with a view to keeping an eye on a player like that and picking up on him when he's had a few more years under his belt. But I just think now it's bad time for him if he wants to replace Trent, because Trent's going now and we need the player to be ready now, and I don't think he is.
What about Olaina then? I think somebody's just said in the comment that actually Nottingham Forest have just got that 1 year extension. I've not seen that when we were going. I was still unsure about whether that was there. Let's discount that for now. Is he good enough? If you didn't have Conor Bradley, would you be happy with Olaina?
I'd be a bit underwhelmed.
I would not be happy if we didn't have Conor Bradley.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I'd understand it, I think, because we've got Bradley, so you get that short term, like, relatively cheap. But I mean, you're talking about a free transfer there, really, if the contract thing is going on. Premier League proven he had a good season as well. He's physically decent 1v1 and that. Scored a few goals as well this season, you know, from far out and that. But I think it sounds a bit simplistic, but I think the answer as to whether he's good enough is probably answered by the fact that he's 28 and playing for Forest. Do you know what I mean? Like, if he was good enough, you could argue he makes it at Chelsea. To be fair, I have always thought he's good. I have always liked him. I think he went to Fiorentina as well. I think he did well.
Torino,
I think, actually.
Torino.
Yeah. I've always thought he's decent. And I still do think he's decent. But I think if Liverpool did that, it would be a bit of a Chiesa fix, where, like, you get a temporary, cheap, just putting a plaster on it, if you get what I mean, for now. I wouldn't overly have a problem with that, especially with the market that's going on. But as I said, I'd probably be a little bit like, it's not very creative, but sound. Do you know what I mean?
A couple of other players that we discussed before the show. Vanderson was one of them.
Yeah, he's at Monaco. I can see more scope for that one. Let's get him up now. I think he's 24, so he's an ideal age for Liverpool.
23 right now, 24 start next season, yeah.
Yeah, 24 in 45 days, bad looks of it. He's on a relatively low wage at about 60k. 3 years on his contract, playing for Monaco, who seems to be a bit of an offensive team at the moment. He's a decent height as well, you know, just under 6 foot. And his availability, let's have a look. It's not bad. This season he's featured in 27 League One matches, started 23 of them. Last season it was 20. Season before he features in 31. But he's got a good few seasons in a row there of playing around 2,000 minutes, which is decent. So he's at least had a career behind him. His level of return isn't bad. 1 goal, 3 assists this season. Last season it was 3 goals and 1 assist. Season before it was 1 goal and 4 assists. So, and he's Brazilian, which suggests that he's technically good. But yeah, he's. I think he's worth keeping an eye on. Like, I've been aware of him for a while and that, but just looking at the state of the market, I think he's a little bit. I don't think he's quite. You know, I don't think he'd come in and immediately put Bradley on the bench, put it that way. But he would be a bit more of a plaster, if you get what I mean. He'd sort you out for a few years, and I think even if he didn't hit the level, you could sell him and get your money back, I think. So, yeah, he's one that intrigues me a little bit. Just a decent all-rounder, I think, is what I'm getting at.
What about that kid, Martin Fernandes?
Yeah, well, he does look in the Trent mould.
Well, you can see these right now, by the way, on my screen. He's 18, isn't he, Fernandes?
Yeah.
Look at that. I mean, the expected assists is off the chart. The actual assists is off the chart. Carries the ball well, take-ons, progressive passes received. You know, he's very much a bit of a... It looks like an up-and-down type of fullback in the numbers there, to me. And, you know, 18 years old. Porto he plays his trade, isn't it? Yeah.
It's Porto, but he does look like a passer. Like, he looks a bit like a young Trent, to be fair. It's just whether Liverpool, you know, would want a project like that. It's whether Liverpool would be willing to kind of, because he'd have to play when Bradley's not there. And this season, Bradley's not been there often. Yeah. You know what I mean? But when it comes to Trent, the value that he offers on the ball and that, you know, if you're talking about like OBV and stats like that, that's where Fernandes is shining. You know, he's assisting a lot. He's progressing the ball a fair bit, and he looks like another. You know, Porto are famous for producing products, and Liverpool have targeted a fair few of them from Portugal over the past couple of years. So I can see. I wouldn't be that surprised if he went there. I think I'd be more inclined to do that one than Reed from Feyenoord. But nevertheless, both of them are obviously risks. You know what I mean? So.
What about, are there any other outside sort of shouts at the moment? There was one, actually, we had a super chat before from Adam Sullivan, and he said, lots of people saying the right market is not good enough this year. Couldn't disagree more. I like Oscar Mingueza, remember the name. Not one that I've come across, I don't think.
Yeah, is that Celta Vigo? I think it's Celta Vigo. Used to be at Barca, I think. But he's a bit older. How old is he?
He is 25.
Oh, was he only 25? I thought he was a bit older than that. That's not too bad. But yeah, he's a good all rounder. He's got. I think he's a decent size, and he's played
6 foot. Yeah.
Yeah, he's played a few decent spots and things like that. A few different spots, so he's relatively versatile and that. Obviously, you know, if he's come through a Barca, he should have decent tactical and technical level stuff like that. So I didn't know he was 25. That's interesting. I'd also throw. There's a few more that I could throw in there, but I am just saying decent right backs here. I'm not saying right backs that, in my opinion, are Liverpool level. So there's a lad called it's spelt Dodo, but I'm assuming it's said differently. Brazilian fella from Fiorentina, tiny,
5'5.5".
Yeah,
my word.
Yeah, 26 as well, so he's a little bit older than you'd want, but. You know, he's a...
that's a no, that, mate. He's too small.
Yeah, he's a runner, though.
He's too small, he's a dribbler. He's too old.
Yeah, he's a dribbler, he's a carrier, but he's someone on the European scene who's relatively prominent. And I'd throw another one in there. I remember a few months ago we spoke about Miguel Gutierrez in reference to left-backs.
Yeah.
There's a right-back for the same team on the opposite side called Arnaud Martinez. So you've got to bear in mind it is Girona. So with it being Girona, like Miguel Gutierrez a few months back, there's some sort of relationship there with Man City, which is not good.
Yeah.
Remains to be seen if he can get involved there, but he's got 2 years on his contract, which is good. He earns about 25 grand a week, which is good. 22, which is good. Just under 6 foot, again, which is good. So, fair few boxes ticked there. I wouldn't say he's as creative. I wouldn't say he's as much of a runner or as much of a dribbler. Doesn't do as much in the final third. But just good on the ball. You know, seems to be relatively progressive and things like that. Reliable. You know, doesn't do anything silly. And I do think Slot's game is a bit Spanish. Sounds quite simplistic to say that, but the first player that we targeted under the Slot management was Zubimendi. I think there's a reason for that. Arnaud Martinez would offer a degree of that kind of just, they call it pause, don't they? You know, where someone's just a bit chilled, basically. I think he's got a bit of that about him. So I'd be amazed if Liverpool sign a player that we haven't just mentioned, put it that way, because there's not many others. So Liverpool either buy one of the players we've named in this episode, or trust in Bradley, I think. Or
both.
Yeah, if they sign someone outside of the players we've listed, I'd be very intrigued to know who it is then. Because not a great market, as I keep saying.
No, yeah, I can see a lot of people saying Banderson and Monaco. We've done that. We had a look at that, so go back and have a look if you want. Like, so, one player we talked about, but we didn't showcase his stats, and I do think it is worth it, is Pedro Porro. Because in the stats, he looks fucking good, to be quite honest with you. You know, you can see here on my screen now, I mean, for a start, he's got defensive numbers like none of the others really have. And yet he's still got the attacking sort of numbers. He's got the passing ability. He's got the shot creating actions.
He's also playing as part of a mad system.
Yeah.
Like a really attacking system, so you know he can do that. And despite that as well,
he still looks good.
Yeah, and he's alive. like half of Postecoglou's squad is dead because they can't cope with the hamstrings. Porro is actually still getting minutes, really robust. You know, this season he starts at 31 in the Premier League. Sorry, he's featured in 31, starts at 26. Last season he starts 35 out of 38. Got a career behind him now in England, and he was doing well at Sporting as well. So I think just because of the alternative options which we've touched on, which they're just not that good. This is why I think Porro is not. He's just. I wouldn't rule him out, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Liverpool just went like, yeah, Porro's the best available player. But it would be. I do think it'd be a bit of a nightmare getting him out of there. I think he'd have to agitate and stuff. But I do think he's much better than a lot of the players we've listed. And it sounds a little bit easy to suggest him because he's Premier League, he's good. It sounds like we're not really looking that far.
This is a lad who came through the Man City Academy.
Porro?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that, did he?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, he ends up at... yeah, well, he starts at Girona as well. I didn't. So that could be because of that link.
I'm sure he comes through the Man City.
But that's the thing, though. If he did, that would make sense because he's gone to Girona first. Girona are obviously under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
So there's some degree of link in there. Spends a year of
2019 till 2022, he was at Man City. Went on loan at Valladolid, Sporting, CP.
Oh, okay.
And then moved to Tottenham.
So he didn't. Yeah, I'm looking at I'm looking at the FB ref. So I'm looking at where he's played. So he's been on loan, obviously, a few seasons then from Manchester City, which is interesting. But yeah, I think with Porro as well, you could get him in and you don't change much then. Like you keep the upheaval at a minimum, you keep the transition as a minimum, and FSG have always been big on that. You could play in exactly the same way. Obviously he's not quite as special, not as much of a unicorn, but he is good. You know, it's just whether Liverpool could be bothered entertaining Spurs and doing all that, and whether they've got Bradley so much at the forefront of their thoughts that they don't want to go and spend 50 plus on Porro. Like, for example, let's say we sign Porro right at the end of the season. Bradley has a really good pre-season. First game of the next season, who starts? That's a question. And if it's not Bradley, he's not going to be happy.
Can Porro play both sides?
I don't think so. I don't think he has. That's probably a no for me. But I mean, you could try it. I always said Trent could probably try it. So you could entertain it, like, but he hasn't done it yet, is what I'm getting at. But I think Bradley will be looking at this and thinking, right, now is my chance to seize the Liverpool #1 shirt. And if we just go and sign Porro, that would kill it a little bit for him.
Yeah. So from the players that we've named, most likely signing for you?
Most likely.
It's a tough question.
I think the most likely is either Frimpong or...
Because of the release clause?
Yeah.
Covers Trent. He could cover Salah, couldn't he, as well?
He's also homegrown.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is worth more than 35 million. He is. So to get him for that and he's 24, you know, so I've expressed my concerns about Frimpong. I have a lot of them. But I would also absolutely get it if Liverpool did that. And the other one I was going to say was probably Vanderson. I think they're the two that feel Liverpool to me. Liverpool type moves where we don't spend loads, but we spend enough, and you're getting value for money, and the player comes in and he's an offensive threat, and his availability is good, he's had a career behind him, clean bit of health, all of that stuff. With all the others, as you can probably say by this episode, most of the names you threw at me, I felt the need to kind of pour cold water on. That's not because I'm a downer. That's just because I just doubt whether Liverpool would do it. Liverpool don't like risk in the market unless there's a value attachment there, unless the player's worthy.
Cool.
With them, I'm not sure who is.
Okay, all right. We'll move on. We're going to be talking about Jarell Quansah and the season that he had, and what we can expect from him. We'll be doing that on Redmen Plus. We do 2 shows every single week. Hope you've enjoyed this one. If you want to get involved, we've got a code running for a free month. You use the code CHAMPIONS. You should all know how to spell that by now, because you've been putting that in your WhatsApp groups. And a club captain subscription. You get a free month. So come over, enjoy the deep dives. You can watch the back catalogue and everything else that we've done. You get an extra 4 deep dives if you use that code over the next month. So yeah, get over there, redmenplus.com, in around about 10 minutes. Thank you very much for watching, Josh. Pleasure as always, and we'll see you soon.